And good afternoon. Welcome to Live with Sue J. I am so excited. I really feel like I'm in tutorial mode because I'm with one who was a Fox News reporter, a BET reporter. She has done it all. We welcome today Gasby Brown, sister, friend, lifelong friend, but she's here today because she is not only a philanthropist, she teaches philanthropy at the Lilly School for the University of Indiana through the Lilly Endowment, and she's just a wonderful woman. But today you're joining us for Conversations with Sister CEOs, brought to you by the new Global Black Women's Chamber of Commerce and Charisma Speakers. We are so delighted, excited, ignited to bring these webinars to you. If you're watching on YouTube, we ask that you subscribe, give us a thumbs up, that's a like, and then share it. Give us your comments. Let us know what these do for you, comments that you'd like to have. But during the show, we ask you to put in the chat box your questions, and towards the end of the show, we will answer some of those questions. So we're so excited to have you. We welcome our new member, Monet, and others who are new members as we prepare to launch next week, the Global Black Women's Chamber of Commerce. And you can find us at Global Black Women CC, that stands for Chamber of Commerce.org. But Gasby Brown, welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here. And hello, sister CEOs. We think alike, we understand each other's challenges and triumphs, but we also know that we're more than conquerors. So it's great to be here.
I love it. And you started out with really a scripture, and we have had so many women of faith who were sister CEOs come here. So let me just start out. What has faith had to do with your journey?
It has everything to do with my journey, because without my faith, I would not have been able to make it. To be able to look back on how God has fulfilled his promises in my life and how he has made me a conqueror and made me understand what challenges were really about and how to understand my true calling and his destiny for me.
Wow. So we're going to talk about that because you've had a journey. I want to first say thank you, because 36 years ago, I was pastoring a church on the Lower East Side of New York. New Black woman pastor, didn't know kind of how to navigate that world. But then in addition to tithes and offerings, we had to have fundraisers and we had to raise money. And you always came. You were our MC for the evening on many occasions. You hooked me up with different people so that I could learn how to navigate those waters. So I want to say thank you. I think it's so important to say thank you for all you've done for me, but you've also touched the lives of so many. So I want to talk about the season that you're in, and then we're going to kind of backpedal and kind of see how you arrived at this season. So now you are the CEO and the founder of the Gasby Group. Tell us what the Gasby Group is.
We are a firm of experts, but before I get into that, I just want to say you are so welcome.
Okay.
And it's just been a pleasure on this journey to have known you this long, even though I'm still younger than you.
That's right. That's right. I took you to school, but thank you. You took me to school twice, and I took you to the real school. Okay.
That's right. Just kidding. But to answer your question more directly, the Gasby Group is a for-profit company that helps nonprofits who do good do better. And by that, we mean we're going to help with the infrastructure of the organization. We help with leadership coaching. We are helping with fundraising plans, strategic planning, succession planning, and more importantly, here recently, we've been doing scenario planning based on COVID-19 and other racial reckoning and all of this. What are the scenarios that need to be played out in order for a nonprofit to be successful? So it's a full service firm, and I have a team of wonderful people who are experts in their field.
So how does one find you? I mean, we're having this wonderful interview, and I want people to understand the Gasby Group, but how do people find you when they're a nonprofit getting ready to start? All of us need help, including the Global Black Women's Chamber of Commerce, because we're a collective. We're trying to bring all kind of sister CEOs together for creation of businesses, connecting, collaborating, sustaining, scaling, and the succession planning, which is so important. So we're trying to be this conglomerate, but everyone needs help individually, but certainly as a whole, we need help. How do people find you and know that they have a need for you?
Well, certainly the first step would be to go to our website, www.thegasbygroup.com. You will see our range of services and how to get in touch with us as well. And once you have reached out to us, we will certainly, our promise is that we will get back to you within 48 hours and to understand what your needs are and to see if we can be helpful.
So I was looking at some of the courses you teach at the University of Indiana, and one of them is fundraising for a nonprofit. So how would you say a fundraising for nonprofits differs from fundraising for for-profits?
Well, there's some stark differences, and that's why my book that's coming out next year will be so important. It's called Think Like a Nonprofit, Act Like a Business,
Yeah.
and which is the theme of our talk today.
It's her book title. We want you to know that. So we're only using it for today, but it is her book we're going to get and make sure we use.
Thanks so much. So I had this deep curiosity about the differences and saw the parallels that in for-profit businesses, they have a vision, they have mission, a board. So, well, nonprofits have the same thing, a mission, a vision, and a board. Now, we'll just start with those three because the list is long.
Yes.
But what I found is that nonprofits can often be so focused on their mission, they're not looking at how to operate in an efficient way to be able to raise money and to also be competitive so that funders will see their value, because there are so many, there are over 1 million nonprofits that exist. And so understanding those differences, the fact that a board for a corporation is paid, the board for a nonprofit is, they're all volunteers. Nonprofits exist to change lives.
Yes.
For-profit companies exist to make money. So we'll start with that.
Yes, yes, that's awesome. That's awesome. So now think like a nonprofit, act like a business, but there's a business side to nonprofits. And so when you are starting from scratch, the first thing you want to make sure you have a vision, a mission, and you want to have a board. But what else do you need to have in terms of, particularly a lot of people start nonprofits as a side hustle and then they build it up into a place where it can take care of them salary wise. What are some things that you make sure that you have in place to even get to that point?
Well, first of all, you must have a strategic plan. And even when you apply for the 501c3 nonprofit status, you should submit a strategic plan. What is your roadmap to get from A to C or Z, actually, when you are fulfilling your mission? And so the strategic plan is very, very important. And part of the strategic plan is really honing in on the mission of the organization. And the mission, a lot of people get confused with vision. The mission should state what you do, who you do it for, and the impact. Wow. And it shouldn't be war and peace. One of the famous gurus of nonprofit thought, Peter Drucker, said that a mission statement should fit on a t-shirt. And you have on a good t-shirt. So
she mentioned it, Global Black Women's Chamber of Commerce, new t-shirt branding. Thank you. Okay. Yes.
And so that's the filter and that's the lens by which everything should be done. And that's why you find some nonprofits, they're scattered everywhere. I call it boiling the ocean, because they're trying to do too many things at once. But hone in on what your mission is about. And if you're fulfilling your mission, then you've earned the right to ask people to support you financially.
Got it. Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. All right. So let's backtrack. Just before this, you were in Maryland. We got to see each other quite often, actually. I found out you had a gift of painting, of art. You could just take a paintbrush and God gave you these beautiful, are those some of your works behind you?
Yes, they are. And they are a mixture of mixed media, because, and then with acrylic and oil and pastels and pencil, because I don't know what I don't know yet. I woke up one morning in 2002 after having visions of painting trees and other objects. And I just told my husband, I'm going to start painting. And I went to Michael's and got paints and canvas and just started painting. And I'm gonna tell you something, people laughed at me. There were some people that laughed at me at first because they know me to do other things. But then I had this small group, and you know what I'm talking about, of
Mhm.
cheerleaders who
Yes.
said, you can do it, and this is what you do. So we entertained a lot, and I would just, one person advised me, just put your art up all over your house. And I did. And as people started coming over, they began to ask, well, Gasby, how can we buy a piece of your art? I was shocked. I said, you want a piece of this? Because
Mm.
it wasn't to be done for any profit making business. It was done because it was all in me and I needed to get it out. So had the first show in Washington, D.C. and in the foyer of the Jefferson Hotel, and sold over 30 pieces just coming out of the gate. But
Wow.
I didn't even know that was good at that point until other artists told me that was phenomenal. So that the journey has been a God journey, incredible, where I have been asked to exhibit and the blessings that have come as a result. And now there 400 of my pieces are owned by people across the country, Canada, and the Caribbean.
Well, thank you for sharing your artwork with me and sharing opportunities with me. But let's talk about seasons. I mean, some of your pictures show seasons like fall, which is your favorite, but there's seasons of life. So, how did you arrive? Because you've been teaching now more than 10 years at for the School of Philanthropy. I didn't even know there was a School of Fundraising and Philanthropy. How did you arrive there, and how did you find out this is my calling from TV reporter for BET and Fox? In New York, doing all of the activities and the events, being the MC and being the person that was always the face, the beautiful face in the place. How did
Thanks.
you arrive, at this season through painting and now philanthropy? How did you arrive here, and how did you know it was your call and destiny?
Yes, it has been an extraordinary journey, Sujay. And I think at the heart of it all is a willingness to surrender, if you will.
Mm,
That when I heard that small, still voice speaking to me that this is the way you go, don't go to the left or the right, go in this path, I listened for the most part.
yeah.
Wasn't perfect, but I did listen to that.
Mhm.
And as a result, the blessings just came one after another, surprisingly so. The way I landed in television is a story in and of itself, and without boring you too much, but I was doing a favor for someone else when I was discovered
Wow.
at a TV station with
Mhm.
no intention of doing that. I have a degree in psychology. My undergrad is in psychology, and my master's is in communications management. So my thought was to always be behind the scenes, but God had another purpose. So there I was being a reporter and creating, you talk about seasons. I
Yes.
saw the reporting as an opportunity to not just report, but to do something extraordinary. So that's when Money Matters. I created the Money Matters show
Yeah.
that was on the McCreary Report. And then I also created a travel show
Yes.
that where I went around the world to cover travel and opportunities to enjoy other parts and other cultures. And so these were the kind of entrepreneurial ideas that were woven throughout my career path, and which has been dotted with so many different things, as you pointed out.
So then seasons dry up, seasons change. You were doing those shows. You left New York, you went to another. So how did you talk to us? Because we have a lot of young entrepreneurs. We have people who are stuck and maybe feel that they really want to do something else, but they feel I've been doing this. This is what I'm known for. What did it take in terms of courage to move on and knowing when it was time to leave that particular job or
Yes.
sets
It's
of jobs?
it's always important to know when to leave the party, right?
Yes, it really.
Uh, but for me, it was closed doors. When doors were closed,
Mm-hmm.
and then other doors opened up. When a
Yes.
window closed, another window would open up.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, here I was doing a financial show, and I'd gone through a very painful divorce. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm being very transparent with you
Thank you
guys.
for it. We appreciate
And in this painful divorce, it hit me financially really hard. So here I am doing a show on money matters and how to make money, and I had 2 cents in my pocket and in my purse.
I
And
remember.
it was so painful to understand that that was the reality of what I was doing. I would scrape into my purses to find a subway token so that I could get to work so I could get paid.
Yes.
And so, in that place of humbleness and
Mhm.
in that place of vulnerability, that's when I saw the door closed and then another door opened up. So
Okay.
there I was doing that foxhole thing in New York. And then a door opened up for me to become the National Communications Director for Greenpeace,
Yes.
the preeminent environmental organization in the
Yes.
world.
Which is
And
right on time, actually, with what we're
yes,
facing. Yes.
yes. And I saw it as an opportunity to expand my public relations background and to travel all over the world, if you will, for a
Hmm.
good cause. And so took that opportunity and moved to Washington, D.C. and worked there. And that was my season for that.
Hmm.
So my next season came with the National Urban League,
Yes.
premier civil rights organization, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
And so with that, a headhunter called me up and asked me, uh, would you be interested in my submitting your resume to a poverty related organization? I didn't know it was the National Urban League at the time. And so, and I'm sharing this for a very specific reason too, for encouragement.
And
So
this,
he did,
yeah, exactly. You
he
please.
he didn't call back for a couple of months, but because I wasn't looking at that time, it didn't really matter. So he did call. He said, I apologize for taking so long, but they're really interested in speaking with you. And it is the National Urban League. I said, oh, okay. And I met with Hugh Price, who
Yes.
was the new president at the time. Hugh and I actually worked at WNET 13 in New York, but it was one of those kind of relationships. I see you in the elevator,
Right.
hi, and so it that's the way it was. So we wound up having breakfast at Old Ebbitt's Grill
Oh my
in
goodness. Yes.
in DC, and it was like a 2 hour breakfast in which we had a lot of exchange of ideas. And so he told me the next step would be to meet with Reg Brock, who was at the time the chair of Time Inc., who was the chair of the board of the National Urban League.
Oh my goodness.
So
You will name.
fast forward,
Yes. Yes.
fast forward here, show you these intersections.
Hmm.
Greenpeace had just hung a sign out that says chlorine kills outside of the Time Inc. building, block traffic on 50th and Avenue of the Americas.
Oh my goodness. And that's
And
a
I,
major street for those who are not New Yorkers. That is the avenue. And okay, so it's
yeah,
the,
main street and major traffic blockage.
yes.
I helped to design that that
Oh my
banner at
goodness.
Greenpeace and all of the media that went around it. So when I went to meet with Reg Brock, he said, "You people were outside of my door and outside of my window, and you climbed this building, you scaled the building." And I said, "Yes, that is very true. And I could probably write a book about Greenpeace, but right now I'm still on their payroll."
Wow.
So he pivoted and we went into the interview. And 2 days later, I got an offer letter. So what I'm saying is that unbeknownst to me
Hmm.
and this journey that had been predestined for me, being with Greenpeace was a big part of the reason that my reputation had built to the point that they would want me there at the National Urban League.
And we use a lot of R words, and I want to stay on reputation for a while because that's also an important word. You want to be reputable because the names you mentioned were people who were reputable at their times, and you then were a part of it. But let's talk about reputation and the importance of being reputable, at any season, so people will know you for the next season. Can you talk a little bit about that for our new entrepreneurs?
Be loyal to your word. If you say you're going to do something, do it.
Yes.
That is at the heart of everything because relationships are a big part of reputation, right?
Mm-hmm.
The
That's
other R word.
the other
Uh,
R word. Yes, yes.
so if you have a relationship and you want to grow the relationship, it has to be based on trust.
Mm.
And so to be able to have a reputation that you will do what you say. And
Mhm.
earlier I said that if you contact me, we will come back to you within 48 hours. What if
Yes.
I didn't come back to you for another week?
Right. Right.
What
Yeah.
would that say about my word? And
Mhm.
then the reputation, oh, they say that they'll get back to you in 48 hours, but it took them a whole week to get back to me. So once again, staying true to your word and then being careful about the word that you put out there.
Mhm.
Don't what is it the saying is, don't write a check that you can't cash, but there's
Exactly.
another word that goes in there. But
So that's where we get the gist of it.
gotcha.
But let's
So
yeah,
that is really,
that's important.
yes.
Ask you this though, because there's a mindset shift that's also important to go from an employee mindset to an entrepreneur mindset, whether you're running a nonprofit or whether you're owning your own business. Can you talk about what it takes to shift and to know that you can be this entrepreneur?
If you are doing entrepreneurial kinds of things within the organizational or the corporate setting that you're in, you're not pivoting very much when you become an entrepreneur on your own. The
Mm,
difference is you're making the money for yourself instead of for other people. So if you are coming up with ideas that are innovative and they're being implemented, even though you're not getting credit for it, you know that you were the impetus for the idea. Understand that that's entrepreneurial thinking, and
mhm.
you can take that to the next level.
So you need courage, but you also need cash. Now, Susie Orman, the other Susie, says you need to have at least 6 months in the bank, of savings. What do you say for a Black woman entrepreneur? So she's been working a job. It's been a good career, and she has this destiny call that she feels is on her life. What does she need besides courage, and how much cash does she really need to step out there so she has more than a subway token? Or is a subway token enough if you know that this is for you?
You've got to have the money in the bank. I would agree with Susie Orman. I've seen a few people say, I'm really, really sick of this corporate life and it's not making me happy. And I have this call to do this work and they quit too soon.
Mhm.
And don't make your move too soon. So make sure that you have planned well by having enough cash in the bank that can sustain you as you are doing the startup. Startups take a while for it to begin to be profitable. You don't come out of the gate being profitable. And if you are self-funding, you definitely need to take care of yourself because for me, we're in the consulting business, we eat what we kill. That's
Yeah, yeah.
so we have to make sure that we have a foundation that is sound and proper. And this goes back to that strategic planning that I alluded to
Yes,
before.
yes, I want to get back.
When you're doing the strategic planning, not only are you planning for what takes you to the next step, but you have financial forecasting that is a part of that. How
Oh,
much is it going to cost for me to do X, Y, Z? And then being able to understand that as a budget, just as you would in your household.
I love that financial forecasting. I mean, that's powerful. I mean, that really is, you're forecasting what it takes to make it. So you also have more hours expended, excuse me, when you're also starting your own business. So talk about how you find balance. I mean, you have a marriage, you have a business, and you want to be profitable. So how do you find the balance? And that's a word that's used a lot, to make sure that you're taking care of yourself, but you're also making sure your business is growing.
Yes, that work-life balance has been a real challenge for me.
Mm.
And for example, when I was single, when I was with the National Urban League, and I purposefully did not have a deep relationship
Mhm.
because I knew I would not be able to nurture it as relationships should be nurtured. So I just kind of did casual stuff, but nothing deep,
Mm.
just because I knew what I wanted to accomplish from that point of view. But then I was blessed to find a wonderful man, and we got married in 2002. And since that time, one thing about it, he has an entrepreneurial spirit, so he
Yeah.
understands some of the hours that I have to put in and the travel that needs to take place. But since COVID-19, because I've been so consumed with how to pivot the work,
Mhm.
I've made a very conscious decision that at 7 o'clock, I am not going to be on my computer.
Say that one more time, and warmest regards to your husband. Say that one
Thank
more
you.
time, please.
Yes, 7 o'clock
Mhm,
p.m.
mhm.
I shut down the computer, give attention to my household.
Yes, yes, which is very important. And most people know me that that I have office hours Tuesday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. I say it wherever I go. So someone sent me an email last night, like at 9 o'clock, and they were like, I haven't heard from you. And so this morning when my office opened, I was like, I don't do work at 9 p.m. So I'll answer you now. And because it's not urgent, the world's not gonna stop because you don't get this email answered. And so having some cutoff boundaries, which is a big word that I say. So you're bold, you're beautiful, you have it seems like you have it all going on. What were the places that you didn't make it?
Oh gosh, failure is the mother of success.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Someone very important said that, and there have been instances in which I have had gone into contracts with clients that we had a misunderstanding of what was expected, and we didn't level set on the expectations. So a big lesson for me was to level set on expectations when
Now,
you're
does it
in.
take a contract to do that, or a contract plus talking it through?
Yes, talking it through so that the contract can reflect it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And then level setting on how sticking to the contract is going to be very, very important.
Okay.
I had situations where, although there was a contract, the person told me, I'm not going to be looking at the contract every time I ask you to do something.
Mm,
Well, that was not a good partnership.
no.
But didn't understand that in the beginning. So it's so important to understand from jumpstart and really, really hone down and drill down on the expectations of others in business so that it can be a successful partnership.
You said sometimes you weren't perfect. So the imperfections, though, you work on. And so give us an idea of the timeline that it takes to kind of be where you call yourself successful.
Oh my goodness, it's an ongoing journey. The successes are small successes along the way that encourage you, from my point of view, to be the kind of person that you want to be. Because ultimately, it's about being the kind of businesswoman, the kind of woman that we strive to be. These things are all intertwined. And so to just say, I'm going towards success. I want to be successful. I want to be famous. I want to for people to know me. That's sort of shallow.
That is. I have a book called Becoming a Woman of Destiny, and I wrote it in the time of transition. I was finishing a pastorate of 30 years, but I was also waiting for my Senate confirmation hearing with Obama. And that in between stage, you have to really kind of struggle within, because you don't know. You've left something and the other part is not promised to you. So you have to really start working on yourself. And it is a journey. And I want people who are listening to know it's a journey, it's a lifelong journey. And so to not get discouraged, you pivot. You figure out what you have to do differently. I went from being an in-person speaker to now being a virtual speaker. And so you have to figure out what you have to do. I think we have some questions also that are going to be coming in from our audience, and Angela's going to be coming on in a couple of minutes. I think we have some questions, but I want to ask you one last question about a nonprofit, because we're talking about think like a nonprofit, act like a business. I want to emphasize that there's a business side to everything that we do. Whether you call it nonprofit or for-profit, that there's a business side. Can you just elaborate on that a little more for us?
Yes, keeping your financials straight, whether you're a business or a nonprofit, making sure you have the right person who is the treasurer of your organization, and making sure that all of the reporting is done according to standards, that they're keeping up with what's called FASB and all of these other accounting mechanisms that help keep you strong, making sure that you know exactly what's going on. And more than in a part of that, I won't say more than, but along with that, making sure that you have a board that is comprised of people who are in business too, so that they can ask the right questions. Often you can't get the right answers if you don't know the right answer, the questions to ask. And
Right.
so having an array of people, accountants, lawyers, people who are understanding fundraising and the like, having them on your board because they are the fiduciary responsibility people as a part of your nonprofit, making sure that they're asking questions and that they're getting correct reports. So that's going to be very important. And COVID has really, really pointed out the need to understand that nonprofit does not mean no profit.
Yes.
I'll say
Yes.
that again.
Say that.
Nonprofit does not mean no profit. The difference in having a profit in a corporation is that that profit goes to shareholders, sometimes to research and development, but mainly to shareholders. Whereas with nonprofits, that money goes to expanding your programs,
Yes.
creating an endowment and reserves. Now, just think about the number of nonprofits who are going to go under, they're going to tank because they didn't have any reserves to help them through this time where fundraising is challenging and other things are happening.
Yeah, and one of the things we were able to do was create some partnerships because we're built in the building stage. So fundraising, people are saying I'm raising my own, but we had a unique partnership where a white corporation, wanted to partner with us, and we just created 25 Black women-owned distributorships. So there are creative ways to do it, but you must have that reserve and you must have an income stream. You must
Absolutely. And
yeah.
you must diversify your fundraising. And congratulations on having that corporation come in and support you, but you can't just rely on that, right? You have to have an annual fund program where you have a donor base and you're asking people to give and support you. And there's so many other things that you need from a fundraising point of view that can help you get your foundation together.
And we're going to be hiring you. So that's from me to you. And look, and I was going to say the other thing you can do creatively is like we created 1-year terms for our board so that in a sense, if they feel like this is not really the spot for me, then they're not committed more than a year. And then we can renew if it is, And so a lot of nonprofits kind of get stuck and they're like, these are my BFFs and I can't let them go, or if they're going to feel obligated to stay. But again, you want to make sure you have the right combination of your board. And unless work together, you don't really know that yet.
Absolutely. I have an audio book called 7 Fatal Flaws of Nonprofit Boards and How to Fix Them. And one thing is the composition. You should choose your board as if the life of the organization depends on it.
Yeah.
And it does.
Yes.
And so many times what happens is, and this is sort of a harsh thing, so put on your seatbelts, many nonprofits don't get the boards they need. They get the boards they deserve. So, yes.
For that one.
Yes, because they haven't done their due diligence on what they need for the board to be responsible to them, and they be responsible to the board. There are a whole lot of things that can contribute to not having buyer's remorse in your board. Let's talk about your board tenure in terms of term limits, because you do want to have stability along the lines, and you do want to enforce term limits when it's time.
Okay, that's helpful. And where can they get the 7 Fatal Flaws?
That's on my website, www.thegasbygroup.com.
And the Gasby is spelled Gasby.
Right, and the S is pronounced as Z.
All right, so I have a Z in my name. I'm Susan with a Z. So
right.
Just want to let you know that. So we have some questions, Angela. If you come on for us and just let us know some questions that are for our dynamic guest, my sister friend, but today we're professional. I just want to give her all her kudos. Thank you for not only what you did, but what you're doing now for so many.
You're so welcome.
Angela, first question.
Yeah, so Doris Booker wants to know, she mentioned she has a family-owned nonprofit that has gone dormant since her grandmother passed away. And she wanted to sort of resurface it, but she has no information about how to even find out, whether it was registered or anything. So she wants to know if there's a family-owned nonprofit, how can she find out information so that she can sort of reignite it?
Very good question. That's Doris, right?
Yes.
Yes, very good question. You can go on irs.gov and they have an entire listing of all 501c3s. Now, the difference is if your foundation, your family foundation was dormant more than, let's say, 7 years ago, they may not have been recorded because before 7 years ago or thereabouts, if your budget was $25,000 or less, you were not required to file what's called a 990. Now, today, all nonprofits must have a 990 submitted to the IRS, because you won't be in good standing otherwise. If that's not the case, I would suggest that you look at what your mission is, how you want to move forward, and then perhaps go to a 1023-EZ. That's another form which you can start a nonprofit in a much easier and quicker fashion.
Great question. Thank you. Is there another question, Angela?
Yes, we got a couple more. Karen Blake wants to know how quickly she can start a nonprofit, how long it takes to get one. And it's a two-part question. She also wants to know how she can get paid. She mentioned that she thought that you couldn't get paid if you have a nonprofit.
Okay, couple of myths there. All right, and this goes into the last question, Karen, that you can file for a 1023-EZ 501c3 status, and that turns around within 6 weeks or so. So it's very, very quick. However, there are limitations when you file for that EZ form. You can't have over $250,000 for, I think it's like 4 years that you will have raised, and have that, and that includes your assets. So if you are planning on having more than $250,000 of both assets and money raised, then you would want the longer form, which takes anywhere from 6 months to a year. But you are going to have no restrictions other than the restrictions of being a nonprofit organization, your filings, and all that you need to do with that.
And we were able to get a pro bono lawyer who helped us with our filings. So sometimes if you don't have to know it all. You need to know that you have some legal obligations, but we were fortunate enough to get some pro bono lawyers who helped with the filing and all the paperwork, and a great accountant who makes sure that the paperwork is filed on time and accurately. So you don't have to know it all, but you need to know what you need to know to get it done.
That's a very good point, because when you talk about the accountant being involved as well as the lawyer, and if you can get pro bono work, absolutely go for it. But the accountant is very important, because then you will have an understanding on which area of the 501c3 tax status, especially for the family foundation question earlier, that you can fall into, and there are several.
And to Gasby's point earlier, you want to know your numbers also. You want to know what you're taking in and what you're expending. I was with Governor Madeline Kunin when I was a White House fellow years ago, and she was the former governor of Vermont. And she said, particularly to women, know your numbers, know how to read a spreadsheet, a balance sheet, so that you know what you're taking in. And I enrolled in a course at Dartmouth at Tuck Business School immediately, so that I could understand kind of the bigger workings of a nonprofit. So always invest in yourself and always keep learning. Like Gasby said, it's a lifelong process, and we want to keep growing with our businesses.
And to the second part of that question, and I totally agree with you, Sujay, the second part is, yes, in your budget, you should budget for an executive director. You should budget for a fundraising and development person, an assistant, making sure that you have the right staff to accomplish your mission. One of the things I will caution, some people have left, and I've seen this, they've left the corporate world, either they were pushed or they jumped. And they said, I've had this dream to have a nonprofit, so I'm going to start one. That is not the right reasons. A lot of people are called, but few are chosen. And make sure that you are doing this for the right reasons, not just so that you can get paid. And I'm not saying this is you, Karen. I'm just talking about what I've seen.
This is helpful. Yeah.
Yeah. To make sure that you have a mission to change lives, that you want to do something transformative in the world and make a difference. And remembering that mission is going to take a lot of hard work, This is not add water and mix when
Right.
you do these things. So understanding what it takes for all of that to be in place and to be an excellent leader.
And with that, I mean, even though I said we have office hours 10 to 4, Tuesday to Friday, that means though people still call after 4 and there's still work and paperwork that has to be done in the evening and on weekends. And so we've used that word calling a lot, and people used to use it just with ministers, but life has a calling. It's what are you really called in your heart to do? As Gasby phrased it, to make a change in people's lives. You know, what do you really feel that passionate? Her opening line of her bio is about her unparalleled passion to do what she's doing. And you want to have that.
Yes.
One more question, Angela? We have time for one
yes. Okay. The next question was, and this is from Evelyn Park. She says, please help. My board won't do anything. They won't work. She mentioned our board is made up of a few family members as well as friends, but they just won't take action. How do you motivate your board?
Well, I would suggest, and it's been my experience with hundreds of nonprofit organizations that find themselves in your position, Evelyn. They call a consultant in, and you are getting the board is getting an objective perspective and a professional experience perspective on the best practices of well-run nonprofits. And then we do a presentation called Leadership with Impact, which really spells out what a board should be doing, what are the corporate requirements according to IRS, and what are the things that they need to be doing, what boards should do and what they shouldn't do. First of all, they shouldn't micromanage.
Thank you. Oh, put a capital M on that. Okay, sorry.
But they do need to help set the direction for the organization and support it, because you really want to strive for 100% board giving.
Yes.
Foundations are asking for that now. That is just fundamental information that's needed in order for you to get grants at this point. But it is a best practice that should take place anyway.
Exactly. Very good. Was that our last question, Angela?
No, just one more. And this is a really, really big one and a great one. Nicole Mitchell wants to know what advice you have to help her to prepare for National Giving Day.
Well, I need to know a little bit more about your nonprofit and what it does, but in general, and it is a great question, you have National Giving Day, you have hashtag Giving Tuesday, which is the Tuesday after Thanksgiving. You have National Philanthropy Month, which is the month of November. So there are many opportunities to become part of what I call the bandwagon effect. Mm-hmm. Some nonprofits do pretty well with the hashtag Giving Tuesday. Religious organizations tend to do better, but it is expected that you're a part of it. So you send out the messaging anyway. But I would suggest that you put together an annual giving program, an annual fund where you are making sure that people know about your mission and that you are putting together appeals throughout the year.
Awesome, awesome. You've heard it from M. Gasby Brown, the Gasby Group. And again, give us your website one more time.
www.thegasbygroup.com. It's been such a joy to be with you.
Oh, it's been such a joy and a pleasure. I mean, we could go on to next week, but I'm going to be mindful of the time. And we thank you for sharing your time with us for lunch hour. This has been Conversations with Sister CEOs, M. Gasby Brown of the Gasby Group, coming to you from Global Black Women's Chamber of Commerce and Charisma Speakers. You can become a member now. globalblackwomencc.org. We're waiting for you. Our arms are wide open. We don't have everything together. We're not perfect, but we want to be there for you. And we're going to be consulting with the Gasby Group so that we'll even have a stronger impact to help create, connect, collaborate, sustain, scale Black women-owned businesses worldwide. Have a great day. Subscribe, like us, comment, and we're so delighted you shared this time with us. Thank you for sharing.